This is something that I think a lot of people don't consider when they start podcasting, but a huge benefit to a lot of businesses is improved cash flow. And when someone is podcasting, strangers or potential clients who are listening to the podcast feel like they're getting to know the host, they're getting to know the company. So then when they jump on a call, maybe like as a response to a call to action, or they fill out a form on the website, they already know the person that they're talking to. They feel like they've got an emotional connection. So instead of it being, the business owner having to do a song and dance, please buy my products, buy my services, work with me, it's the potential client going, I love the stuff you're saying. I love your show. How do we start working together? Can we start today?
There are opportunities for our work and careers everywhere, if you know where to look. That's easier said than done, especially in our fast-paced and constantly changing world. Marianne Fairmouth is talking to experts, employers, and job seekers to bring you insight and understanding about what's possible. This is Career Can Do, where we're navigating the new work world.
Welcome to the Career Can Do podcast, a top global podcast dedicated to helping you navigate the new work world. My name is Marianne Fairmouth, and I'll be your host for this episode. And today I'm just delighted to have a guest on my show that I have so much respect, admiration, and high acclaim for. Megan Dougherty is the co-founder of a very, very prominent podcasting company called One Stone Creative. I'm proud to mention that she is the producer of my podcast, Career Can Do. And my podcast, since working with Megan, is now in the top 10 globally of career podcasts out of the top 40. And I have to say, much of the success, I believe, that has come from my show is because of the production company that I've selected. And as all of you know, I'm a recruiter, I'm a writer, I'm an author. I didn't know anything about podcasting, but Megan has made this experience and journey so wonderful that I wanted to have her on the show today. Also, real quick, 500 million people worldwide these days listen to podcasts, and almost 50% of Americans listen to a podcast at least once a month. So with those statistics, we can tell that this podcasting venue is very, very popular. So after all that incredibly long introduction, without further ado, help me welcome Megan Dougherty. Megan, say hello to everybody.
Oh, hello, everyone. Marianne, thank you so much for that very warm welcome. And the compliments have completely swollen my head. So I'm now fully ready to talk about podcasting. Thank you. It is such a pleasure to work with you and yours.
Well, you are just amazing. And I was scared to death when I did this, and it was all by accident. I went to an NSA conference in Houston. It was a national conference, sat next to Tom Fox. He told me to be on his podcast show, and I was. And then he said, you have a knack for this. Let me tell you about a great company, and the rest is history. But also, we're here today not only to talk about podcasting, but so exciting to talk about the book that Megan's just put out, Podcasting for Business, How to Create a Show That Makes a Bottom Line Difference for Your Company. Megan, this is so great. Why did you write Podcasting for Business?
Well, I've been working in podcasting since 2017, and we've always exclusively worked with business owners who are podcasting in support of their businesses, or sometimes, marketing managers or team members who are podcasting within the context of a business. And in the broader podcasting community, most podcasts are hobbies. They're passion projects. They're things that people make because they love the medium, because they love their topic, or they're businesses in and of themselves. The podcast itself is designed to be a business. But that really leaves out that business owner who's podcasting as a marketing channel for their business. And that's where I've put my focus for the last 8 years. And kind of after all of the theories we developed, the methodologies, I really wanted to get it into kind of its not final form, but into something solid and real and tangible. So last year we decided it's finally time. We're going to write the book. And over last spring, I wrote Podcasting for Business.
Well, that is wonderful. And, you've got so many metrics in this book. I mean, you really get into the mathematics of it. But you talk a lot about podcast blueprints, okay? What are podcast blueprints? Make that clear for our listeners.
So this is the underlying philosophy of how we create podcasts at One Stone Creative. So over the years we've been doing this, we identified 5 podcast blueprints. And these are high-level archetypes for why podcasts exist and what they can really do for a business. And every podcast has one of them as their kind of key goal. And so they are relationship building, where the most important thing a podcast does for a business is connects you with other people. Then there's thought leadership, where the most important thing a podcast does is get your name out there and build your credibility. Then there's audience engagement, where the most important thing a podcast does is connect you with an audience that you already have. Conversion podcasts are podcasts that turn a listener from one type of relationship into another one. And some shows exist just to create content. So that's the fifth blueprint, is there podcasts that really just exist to like create content for a team, for social media, for blogs, or for other purposes. So most podcasts are going to fit into one of those as being like the most important reason that they exist. And when you have that as a strategic decision-making filter, it makes all of the other choices that you need to make about your podcast much easier, because you can always ask, will this help me build relationships? Or will this help me engage my audience? Or will this help me convert people from one thing to another? And when you have the answer to that question, you know if you should have sponsors, if you should have guests, how long your show should be, and all of those other things. So it's a formula, basically, for making decisions about your podcast.
The other thing I like so much that I want to mention here is that you have a podcasting conference once a year. Podcasting, I don't know, we're going to call it a conference, convention, whatever. But Megan, you have so many great people on that, and I've learned so much from that. Is that just for your people that work with your One Stone Creative, or it's just so great?
Yeah, the Podcasting for Business conference, it started kind of the same way as the book did, although it happened first, is when I was at another podcasting conference. It was a really good one, Podfest. I love it. But I was there and I was hanging out with Tom Fox, the same person who introduced you to me. And we're just like, this is great, but our clients have businesses, they have jobs. They can't come spend 3 days talking to awesome people about podcasting. They don't have the time. So we thought, hey, we should do something virtual. So I started in 2022, the Podcasting for Business conference is an online event for people to learn about podcasting, different strategies, learn from the many different experts in the space, because there are lots of really smart people doing really smart stuff. And I wanted to bring people together in a way that was going to fit in with someone's work schedule or the rigors of running a business.
Okay, well, it's wonderful. And, as we talked about earlier, there's a lot of metrics in this book. I mean, I have read the book and it's an amazing book, but can you explain the concept of podcast value math? What does that mean exactly?
Yes. So for everyone listening, I'm a giant nerd, and it's really important that you understand that right from the beginning. So when it came down to figuring out how to measure the value of a podcast, and as a business owner, you have to measure the value of your marketing activities. You don't get to skip that, but you need to understand what the return on your investment is. And in the different metrics that I outline in the book, there's 15 individual metrics there, and I go through how each of them is going to make a difference to someone's business, to the bottom line. But those are not the only 15 ways or reasons that a podcast can be valuable. So I created a formula that anyone can use, whether they're a business owner or not, to help make a podcast that brings them what they want. And so it looks at, what is the value of a podcast to you? Maybe it's money, maybe it's relationships, maybe it's fun, maybe it's something else. And then what are the parts of the podcast that create that value? What actions do you take to make more value? So there's a formula in there to do that kind of thing.
That's wonderful. And out of the 15 podcast success matrix, what are some of your favorites?
Probably my very favorite is sales cycle length. So this is something that I think a lot of people don't consider when they start podcasting, but a huge benefit to a lot of businesses is improved cash flow. And when someone is podcasting, strangers or potential clients who are listening to the podcast feel like they're getting to know the host, they're getting to know the company. So then when they jump on a call, maybe like as a response to a call to action, or they fill out a form on the website, they already know the person that they're talking to. They feel like they've got an emotional connection. So instead of it being, the business owner having to do a song and dance, please buy my products, buy my services, work with me, it's the potential client going, I love the stuff you're saying. I love your show. How do we start working together? Can we start today? And it's a huge difference. So you can optimize a show to do that more easily within your business. And that's, I think, my top favorite metric of all of them.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, the book is so interesting because it goes into so many things, but what level of detail do you go into about each of the metrics? There's a lot, but how would you summarize that?
I try to be as comprehensive as possible when it comes to providing the information to be able to really take something and run with it. So for each of the individual metrics, which are different business outcomes that you can optimize a podcast for, we talk about the priorities, what kind of businesses it works best for, the specific actions you need to take to optimize a show to do that thing for your business, and how to evaluate successes and failure. Like, is it working? Is it not working? How do you make that decision? And of course, what's it going to cost you? Because that's something as business owners we also have to be aware of all the time.
Oh, for sure, for sure. One thing that I've learned early on is, I learned this too in the conference, was how important it is to select the right kind of guest.
Oh, yeah.
Depending upon what your podcast is about. I might interview 4 or 5, 6 people before I decide on one. But I think the other thing about One Stone Creative that I think is just so valuable is that they do help you become successful. And, I interviewed a lot of podcasting people before I chose One Stone Creative. But the thing about Megan that I like is that if you're in a situation, you don't know something, you pick up the phone, you ask her, she has the answer. And I think for somebody, new in the podcasting role, that's critical. All right. Because I think, we all think we want to do one, but we have to make sure we're doing it correctly. We've got the right guests on there. And the other thing, I love about doing it myself is I learned so much. I'm a recruiter, I'm a writer, I'm an author, and I have people on my show that contribute to what I call the new work world, but also not only about how to find the best job, but how to find the best life. And when I get these people on my show, I learn so much. So that's great. So I've talked to a lot of people. I just had dinner with somebody on Saturday. I just sent you an email from Philadelphia. But Megan, what's the single most important piece of advice you have for a business owner thinking about podcasting? I mean, there's so many variables, there's so many things, but what do you think is the most important thing to consider?
I think the most important thing is before you, invest in a mic or start talking to production companies, I think you want to get really, really clear about what you want a podcast to do for your business. Because, we're not doing this just for the love of the game. It's not just because we love podcasting. It's because, we've got goals that need to be met. And when you start the whole podcasting process with, this is what my business needs to grow, to be sustainable, to be enjoyable to work in, and you make all of your other decisions based on that, your podcast is going to be a lot more successful. And so before, more than anything else, I think understanding why you're podcasting and what impact it's going to have on your business is the most important thing to do from the get-go.
Yeah, I think you're right. And also, I think, what I can say from my experience is aligning yourself with other groups or associations that can also expand your marketing. I mean, I work with the Price of Business show, and I write every week for the USA Daily Post and Times, but they also feature my podcast on their show, so it's nationally syndicated. So I do think that exposure, that marketing in a bigger, broader way also helps a podcast. Don't you agree, Megan?
Oh, yeah. And you've got a wonderful strategy. And the relationships and systems that you've built around your show, I think, are superior. You've made really good choices. And the way you're creating not just an individual podcast, but a whole body of work that leads back to your books and to your practice and to the other things that you do. I think it's very well done. And I think you've made all of the decisions really, really well.
Well, thank you. But I have to say, being on One Stone Creative, being on Megan's show has helped me in my recruiting business, has helped me in my speaking business, has helped me market my books. So there's many dimensions to what a podcast can do. But I think the single most important thing that I've really enjoyed for me is the learning. I have guests on my show, as you know, Megan, from all over the world, but I learned so much. And I think the more we can learn, the more we can grow. I think that just makes more of a quality of life. So yes, it's certainly a business tool to help your business grow, but also personally, it can help you become your best self and learn and grow. Megan, I just have enjoyed this so much, and I'm so glad you took the time today to be on the show. But as you know, I always like to leave our listeners with contact information too. So if somebody's listening to this and they want to get a hold of you, it'll all be on my website as well, Fairmouth.com. But how can they do that?
They can go to onestonecreative.net. That's ONE, stonecreative.net, where they'll find any contact form goes directly to my inbox. So you can, and I live in my inbox, so I respond quickly to emails. And if you'd like a copy of Podcasting for Business, it's podcastingforbusiness.com/book.
And then also, as you know, I always like to leave our listeners with 2 salient points to take with them, to think through, to digest. If we had to leave our listeners 2 salient points about podcasting, what do you think those would be?
It's impossible to overstate the relationships that you can develop when you're podcasting. You can develop them with your guests, who can become friends, clients, colleagues, and everything, and teachers, mentors, and also for your audience. It can feel very isolating to podcast. It feels like you're alone, but there are people listening, and they are developing a relationship with you that can turn into many more things later on. That's one. And I think the other is the best time to start a podcast was probably about 5 years ago. The second best time is today.
I think you're right. I have to say, I'm a testament of what One Stone Creative can do and has done for me. I feel like I've grown professionally as well and personally from having a podcast show. So whoever you are out there, if you're listening, you're thinking about doing a podcast show, give One Stone Creative, Megan Dougherty, a call and talk to her about it. She's an amazing person. She's sincere. She's bright. She's down to earth. She really makes my show a quality show every single time. And as I said, you won't be sorry. And she'll tell you the truth. All right. She'll tell you the truth. I mean, if she thinks your idea maybe needs a little more embellishment, she'll tell you that. So One Stone Creative, Podcasting for Business, pick up the book. If you want to create a show that makes a bottom line difference for your company, pick up Podcasting for Business. And for sure, contact One Stone Creative. They're amazing. They've changed my life. And I'm just so grateful to know these people. So we're near the end. We want to thank you so much for listening to Career Can Do. You can download us on every major podcast channel. And we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We thank you for tuning in to our Career Can Do podcast. We make no guarantees on results for your particular quest, but we hope you enjoy the information presented. The views and opinions expressed in this program are solely that of the guest or speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Mary Ann Fairmouth and Fairmouth and Company. Thank you.